Hello! We're going to be talking about conflict resolution today and viewing it as a growth opportunity. So, first of all, we want to keep the end in mind. Now, sure, peace, calm, having a classroom of rainbows and sunshine is really quite nice, but what we really want to do with our students is empower them. We want to empower them to be able to go into a situation and solve their own problems. We want to empower them to be able to respect themselves as well as others, to ask for what they need, to set boundaries, and we want them to be able to get their needs met while also building connection, right? So basically, we want them to be good, happy human beings. It all starts with you, the mentor. And we have to kind of make sure we're going in with the right mindset. So it's pretty easy to see emotions as a moral failing sometimes, depending on how we grew up or what those emotions are. There's a lot of people in this world that really struggle with anger as an appropriate emotion. But we need to be able to see emotions as information. Also, we can have some negative views about conflict, where we see conflict as bad or wrong. Well, conflict is natural. It's just a natural part of life, and it's a thing that we have to learn skills to be able to deal with. And then the other important thing is to be able to see yourself as not a judge, but as a guide. And to be able to do all this, you're going to have to be aware of your own biases. So, emotions as information. Emotions are not bad. They can't hurt other people. That's what behaviors are. And it's even true that certain emotions are really developmentally necessary. Like teenagers have to go through this phase of questioning and wondering for them to totally individuate. It's important for toddlers to have like a will. And they have tantrums because they aren't able to communicate that will, right? They're starting to separate themselves as part of the mother into also individuals. And then finally, don't try to talk people out of their emotions. The kinds of things like, don't be sad, just be happy. They are sad, so don't try to convince them that they're not. We need to see emotions as information so that we can make good decisions and appropriately deal with situations in front of us. And then just remember that children do well when they can. Adults do well when they can. And when we're hungry or hangry or tired or having a lot of things going on in our home life or, feeling sensitive or insecure, all of these are situations that cause us to maybe not act what our best would be on any other given day. So always think about what is behind the emotion. I love this quote by Ashley Warner. Beneath every behavior, there is a feeling. And beneath each feeling is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom. Typo, darn it, ignore that typo. We're going to deal with the cause, not the symptom. So behind every behavior, there's a feeling. So let's talk about the gossiping 13-year-old. What's behind that behavior? Or what's the feeling behind that behavior? The need to feel important, the need to feel valued, the need to feel in the know, part of the gang, right? The need to have some power. All of those are feelings that are behind that behavior. And none of those feelings are bad, but they are information about what this individual needs at the time. And so when we can meet that need, rather than focus on, just rooting out a behavior. Now, we do need to address behaviors. We're not saying ignore behaviors, but we also need to focus on meeting that need. So can we find opportunities for that student to feel powerful, to feel part of the group? And as we do those things, do we see those behaviors not showing up, those negative behaviors? We can also teach them positive behaviors to help them meet their needs. All right, next, conflict is natural. We'll come back to emotions a little bit too, just kind of covering some groundwork here. But conflict is natural. Anytime we bring different people together, there is some kind of conflict. And this shows up for a lot of these little kids, like especially the alphas. They're coming from home lives, from mom and siblings. And there's conflict with siblings, right? But it's different. Now there's other types of people they're meeting and other ways of doing things and other ways that people feel and respond to emotions. And homeschoolers in general, they don't necessarily meet with as many different types of people. And so conflict only gets bigger and scarier and feels, problematic when there are lacking in skills. So there's not the communication or problem solving skills. When boundaries have not been expressed or communicated or are unclear. When we don't understand needs, what people need, and when there's a lack of respect a lack of respect or responsibility. If someone's not willing to take ownership for what they did, then it's really hard to de-escalate a conflict. When someone doesn't respect other people or their things, then it's harder to de-escalate conflict. When someone needs space and that need hasn't been made clear, or that boundary hasn't been communicated, or quietness, less noise, or more inputs, right? Whatever the need is, then there's more conflict. And when someone can't say, I didn't like that, or please stop, then there's going to be more conflict problems. The conflict is going to escalate. And it's just really important too to be okay with different emotions, different experiences, different approaches, and different viewpoints. Know that, just like when you're in a relationship, a partnership relationship, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that that's the way other people made beds, right? You don't have to have a conflict about that, or a big escalated conflict. But if you're okay with different approaches, different experiences, then, that also helps with conflict. So communication is not about saying what we think. It's about ensuring others hear what we think. So as you as a teacher, as an aide, as a mentor, if you're not getting the response that you want, change your communication. If you think you've been clear and you're not getting what you want, maybe you haven't been clear. If you said, there's lots of ways we could talk about this, but just keep that in mind when you get what you ask for, even if you think you're asking for something else. So mentors as guides. It's really important that your mindset is that you are a guide, not a judge, and that you are aware of your own biases and triggers. And then it's important that you model both communication, boundaries, respect, and responsibility. And then after that, there'll still be conflicts that show up, and it's your job to help facilitate. And we do this by leading with calm. We have a plan, and then we, respect the emotions, and we wait out the storm and observe as needed. And then we ask questions and we listen. Those are kind of the basic steps of facilitating. So first off, be really aware of your own mindset. What are your biases? What are your triggers? We all love kids, but there are some kids that are like the good kid that we have high expectations for. And there are other kids that are always off task, or the troublemaker, right? Or the drama queen. And it's really important that we're careful that we don't interpret a situation based on biases that we have made from these kids. And then sometimes there's just a behavior that really irritates you, or an attitude that really bugs you for different reasons. We had a teacher, and granted, this kid was exceptionally challenging. But this kid, we had to move her out of her class because she had been in a situation of abuse, and some of the things this kid did triggered her abuse, like, some of the things that her abuser would do to her. And she just had a really hard time being neutral with that trigger. So, and that's kind of an more extreme situation, but try to notice those things and be aware of those things. And then the final thing is just make sure your expectations are appropriate for the age, also for the neurodiversity, and also for the situation, right? So, they say that, a kid can pay attention for 1 minute per age. So at 5 years old, they got 5 minutes. 15-year-old, they got 15 minutes, right? Doesn't get much bigger, does it? But then also for neurodiversity. So is this an appropriate expectation that you should have for this kid that has these, unique sensory constraints or demands? Or is this situation there's a lot more inputs coming in, and now the situation that you can't expect the same thing out of the situation, if that makes sense. I'm kind of going really, really broad here. And then it's really important that you model communication, boundaries, respect, and responsibility. So we all do this. We're like, okay, here's the project we're going to do. Here's the instructions. And then you go, and then they're not doing something. You're like, oh, okay, I didn't make that clear. Let me say this again. I should have said this more clear. Let me write this on the board as well, right? And so you are modeling communication that's clear. If you have students that are, being disrespectful, it's important that you tell them they're being disrespectful and communicate your boundaries and say, when I talk, you don't talk, right? That's the boundary we're setting right here. That shows respect. When you make a mistake, you own up to it. If you lose your temper a little bit, your patience a little bit, if you miscommunicate, if you tell two kiddos that they can both go first and you didn't realize it, if you said you were going to do something and then you forgot, right? Own your mistakes. Show that you have to take that responsibility. And then respect your students. I kind of went out of order, including their space and their pace. And this goes back to, each kid is on a different developmental journey and different, thing going on in their brain. So respect them like you want others to respect you. Okay. Facilitate. Okay, that's all just kind of the back stuff. So now we're going to really get into this conflict resolution as a growth opportunity. So You're going to, anytime you come into a conflict situation with students, you're going to lead with calm. And you always kind of need to have a plan or a pre-act, right? There's act and react. Well, I came up with the word pre-act. That's not really that cool, but whatever. So you're going to have, a situation or a system or even just words that you say. Maybe you've read some read alouds with them that kind of introduce some of the approaches you're going to have when people have big feelings. We kind of joke about big feelings time at my house and sometimes my classes. Oh, we're going to have big feelings time. We're going to talk about our big feelings. Anyway, it's, in the past we've had a calm down corner, or there's a bench in the hallway that can be the calm down bench. Some teachers have done something called a peace table where you can go, they usually use a rug. You sit on the rug and, the person you're having the conflict with, you can sit down and talk with them. There's a little more that goes into that. If you're interested, I can let you know. Or even a code word. I started this with my kids actually when they were little. My oldest is pretty neurodiverse, and she would get really overwhelmed when there was, a lot of little kids. She was 6, and then there was a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and a baby, and it would just get overwhelming. And so we came up with, if she was upset or anyone was overstimulated, we'd say midnight, and then we'd all freeze. Well, unless, if I was driving, I wouldn't freeze, and we'd take a breath and we'd do like some square breathing or something and take a minute and reset, and then, then have a conversation about what was going on, what was too much. You can still do code words or phrases with older kids. When when someone does, so this happens a lot with older kids, when someone does something stupid to try to get attention or look cool, like let's say eat a raw egg, right? You don't want to say, well, that was stupid. Oh, sometimes maybe you do. But you kind of have to, have things in your head that you are, ready to say, like, well, that happened, or live and learn, or like I was saying, that code word of midnight. So you kind of have to have like how you're going to address a situation. Now, older kids don't often have like straight out blow ups in the middle of class like you often will see with alphas and betas. They're more on the sidelines or in smaller groups, and so it's a little bit different, but there's still some similarities. Okay, so then when you've got kids that are in a storm. We don't try to solve problems when someone is emotionally dysregulated. So we wait out the storm and we offer empathy and support. And so for younger kids, that can be sitting by them, being on their level, sometimes a little bit of touch, like you can touch their elbow, see how they respond. You can just make noises like, yeah, oh, I'm so sorry. Or I'm here if you need something, I'm here for you, right? Whatever it is. So that they know that they're not isolated. And then there are some kids that need the isolation. They can't calm down, with someone watching them. I have a child like that. And then observe their body language. If they're moving away from you, don't move closer. If they're, trying to shut out sound and noise, maybe try to facilitate a space for them where there's less sound and less noise. But give them a minute. Give them a minute to calm down. And then we're watching body language. So, and this is also while we're talking with the kids during mediating the conflict, noticing any signs of fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. So clenched fists, backing away, frozen, can't respond at all. If they're just eager to give in and say, oh yeah, you're right, oh whatever, yeah. That's the fawn response. And then part of your job is to interpret that body language to communicate to the students what it is that you're seeing. Oh, are you noticing how she's pulling away? I think that she doesn't like that. Right? Or can you see how she's got her fist clenched? She's feeling angry and frustrated right now. And then be aware of your own body language too. Some kids tolerate eye contact well and others don't. Open and closed posture can make a difference, as well as either towering above them or being on their level. Okay, so now is the talking part. So let's say student 1 kicks student 2 in the bum, and student 2 is bawling, and you've pulled them aside, you're on the calm down bench or whatever. Maybe you don't have them together initially, right? You get them alone, and that's why we have aides, so you can or your aide can help with this too. And they're kind of calmed down a little bit, and so then you can say, so what happened, right? Well, so-and-so kicked me. Well, what happened before that? Oh, I punched her in the face. Or, I don't know what I did, right? You get that one too. Or, how did that make you feel, right? And so you're walking them through, helping them kind of digest and discover the situation, what happened. So that's the first step, right? And then you're going to move into, what are we going to do about it, right? So what do you think we should do? And who can you control? And What can we do next? And then if everyone's together, is everyone okay with this plan? How are we going to solve this? And do we need to make it right? Do we need to apologize? Do we need to fix something? But and then also approaching it as much as possible, solving it as a team, right? So another important point is to focus on one thing at a time. So stay on one point. So, we'll talk about the hitting in a minute. Right now, we're talking about how you poured paint all over their project, right? Or another really important thing is to make sure each person gets their turn. If there's interrupting, you're like, nope, Simon's telling how he feels right now. And then keep watching the body language. If there's signals that someone has more to say, right, you'll see it in their body language. And then another one of our jobs is summarize to empathize. We restate what students are saying, and then that creates space for other students to feel empathy. So it seems like you're saying that when you asked quietly, no one heard you, and so you shouted or bit. That happens too. So that you could be heard. It must not feel very good to not be heard. That must be really hard for you. It seems like you were hurt at being left out. Everyone else was playing the game and they didn't seem to want to include you. So you took the ball so that no one could play, and then you wouldn't feel hurt anymore, right? We also take the time to differentiate between emotions and actions. It's okay to be angry. It is. It isn't okay to hit. It isn't okay to call names, right? Those are things that hurt. Those are behaviors that hurt. It's okay to be happy, but it's not okay to hug a friend without their permission, or to squish your friend to death, right? Or to kiss people because you feel in love. That's also not okay, without consent. Your feelings were hurt. I'm sorry that happened, but that doesn't mean you get to smash his project, right? So we're differentiating between emotions and actions, and we always are validating the emotions and teaching that emotions are okay, they're information. But we aren't prisoners of our emotions, we are actors, and we have to take responsibility for our actions. All right, then we really work hard to empower to solve their problems, empower them to solve their problems, not us. Sometimes we have to teach assertiveness. Give the kids the words that they don't have, like, did you say stop? Did you say stop when you didn't like something? It's okay to say stop. Let's practice that. Stop it. I don't like it when you do that, right? Or that hurts. Please stop, right? And model the words they can say. A lot of these kids haven't had practice in, saying these things. Also the kids that just roll over all the time. And just give in. So let's teach them, I'm playing with this one now, you can have it next. Or I was using that color, you can have it when I'm done, right? This applies to older kids too. I'm working on this part of the project, you can work on this other part, right? They don't always have to just do what the stronger personality says. And then always, always, always let them offer solutions first. How can we fix this? Let them start. If they don't come up with anything, you can start, get the ball rolling, give them some ideas. But always, always, always let them offer solutions first, and for sure settle on solutions if they're not offering them. I love this quote. Being saved makes you grateful to be safe in that moment. Saving yourself makes you feel brave going forward. When we rescue kids, we take away their sense that they are in control and deprive them of the opportunity to learn they can handle things when they get hard. We also make it easier for kids to avoid dealing with stressful situations, reinforcing avoidance habits. Okay? So, going back to all the way at the top, what are we trying to do? We are trying to help these kids be able to solve their own problems, respect themselves and others, and get their needs met while building connections. And they can't do that if they believe that emotions are bad or wrong or scary or unmanageable. If they believe that conflict is something to be avoided, that it's bad somehow, that it's lesser than peace, right? And if they aren't willing to take responsibility and respect others, if they don't have the communication skills to communicate their boundaries and communicate and problem solve generally, and if they aren't aware of their needs and aren't able to communicate their needs. So we really embrace conflict as an opportunity to really help these kids grow, and we take the time to work through it. And we feel like it's some of the most important stuff that we do, and in teaching these kids to be amazing and to be themselves and to really grow. So that's that. Go forth. Mediate conflict wisely. Grow your students.